All right, welcome back, Florida Football Insiders podcast. Everybody wants to know, who is Alex Golesh, the new coach of the University of South Florida. Nobody really knew who he was when he was hired. Kind of a surprise name that was announced on Saturday night. A lot of people thought Deion Sanders. A lot of people thought maybe a couple other names that were in the mix, but no. Alex Golesh, the co-offensive coordinator at the University of Tennessee, is hired to replace Jeff Scott. Kind of a similar boat as Jeff Scott, comes in with a lot of offensive pedigree, coming from the Josh Heupel system. Was been with Josh for a couple years now, 1 year at UCF, then 2 years at Tennessee. And no better person to talk about all things Alex Golesh, who's covered him for 2 years in Knoxville. He's a University of South Florida graduate, so I know he has some vested interest in this hire as well. Vince Ferrara, 99.1, the sports animal in Knoxville. He's covered him for 2 years. Talked to him, I'm sure, a bunch. We're going to talk to Vince about all the things about Alex Golesh getting the job here at USF. So welcome back, Vince.
Man, great to be with you, Jason, as always.
Yeah, all right, let's get right to it. Co-offensive coordinator. I know you've told me, and you've been on this podcast several times talking about the access that Heupel's allowed the coordinators to talk to the media over the years. Just talk about his media presence, talking to you guys in the media. How has Alex done handling the media, and just interactions you guys have had for the last couple of years?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We had a chance to talk to him. Even during the season, they would make a rotating assistants, two of them available on game weeks, and he was in him in DC, Tim Banks in a regular rotation. So I'd say we've talked to him, gosh, since he's been here, 15, 20 different times, which is cool. He's a different personality. He's very thoughtful in his answers. He is very energetic. He's one that I think thinks through everything, but he'll give you some honest answers also. Like if a guy is like, look, just needs to mature some, for example, things like that. Or we think our standard here at Tennessee is we expect to be the number one offense in the country. And he said that earlier, before the season ever started, or maybe very early in September. And that's what ended up happening for a good part of the year. They had the number one offense. So he'll give you some stuff. He's not just all coach speak. He's a younger guy at 38. So there's not the long list of NFL guys he's coached. I think going into this upcoming draft, I think it's 5 guys, including Velus Jones, who's a rookie in the NFL, some of those guys. But I think he's impressive. To me, he comes with a little bit more overall juice than what Jeff Scott did. I still expected more from Jeff Scott at USF, honestly. I think a lot of people did. But I think Alex Golesh, with how great the offenses have been that he's been a part of, I think he's an excellent hire. He knows what has worked under Josh Heupel at his 2 stops. And the big thing for USF is he's a relentless competitor and recruiter. I think USF needs both of those things.
What's his position specialty as far as before, what has he coached or kind of grown up in the business coaching?
Tight ends is what he has done. That's his baby. Now, they have not had an elite athlete. They haven't had any Brock Bowers or Washington or any of those kind of talents there, but they've improved their tight ends that they've had there under him. It's been Jacob Warren and Princeton Fan, guys that he inherited. And other than that, they've had a couple of freshmen either depart or just now hit the transfer portal. They haven't had that elite athlete. Now they do in this upcoming signing class, but they haven't had it yet. So we really haven't seen him utilize the position that he coaches to the maximum of what they'd like to. They'd like to have stud tight ends to where they can use both guys at the same time and not be a personnel specific and based on who they have, and just really have multiple threats on the field at the same time. So Expect that to be addressed in recruiting. When we see them on the practice field, which is before the season and in the spring, he's so detail oriented in the way he coaches guys. He will compliment them, but he will get after them as well. When we're in the press box and there's some angst, let's say, coming from the press box to the coach's box, a lot of times it's Alex Golesh. So that's another thing is he's been in the press boxes.
Okay.
It'll be a different deal for him to be on the sideline. So he's a really high energy, super detailed guy that has focus on the tight ends, but he's been involved in the game planning and play calling as well, even though Heupel has handled the day-to-day stuff.
That was going to be my next question is you hear a lot of these coaches, whether it's NFL, college, Heupel, Sarkisian, guys like Andy Reid in the NFL, they've got a coordinator that's got a title. Was Alex Golesh calling plays? And that's, obviously you got the title as OC, but was he given the opportunity to call plays periodically throughout the year? What was kind of that relationship of who called the plays with this high prolific offense?
Well, he was involved, but I mean, clearly you can see Heupel calling in the plays and, covering up and things like that. So I think Alex Golesh was involved. I think there's times where Alex Golesh would say, "Hey, we need to do this. Let's do this," and maybe Josh was the one to execute it. I think it was a shared deal in the game planning also.
Okay.
And frankly, quarterbacks coach Joey Halzle was probably the lead candidate to be the new OC to take his place. They were all involved in all those things and would contribute input. And it's weird. It was never really truly answered by anyone.
Okay.
But in the preseason, his bio, Alex Golesh's bio changed, and somebody found it to where it said he's a play caller, and everybody's like, "Wait, how is that? How is he the play caller?" But I think it was a strategic move to help him in terms of
getting a
future head coaching job.
Right.
And so there's some technicality to where, he was involved in calling plays, but I don't think that was a down in, down out thing. I do think it was Heupel, his offense, and then kind of some shared duties to where you could technically say he did contribute in that area.
Do you expect him to bring this exact same Tennessee offense? Fans, if you didn't watch much Tennessee this year, a different offensive formational thing that most people don't run. A lot of wide receivers, really wide splits with the wide receivers, opening up the middle of that field for the runners in the short passing game. Do you anticipate him bringing that same exact system to USF?
I do. And there's a lot of aspects to it. You hit on some of the key ones, Jason. The wide splits of the receivers, forcing teams to have to cover sideline to sideline, which puts you in conflict in where you're going to go if you're in zone coverage.
Right.
It also forces teams to declare when they motion guys because you can't get out and change and do a lot of switching unless they do a bunch set. And they would take advantage, bunch to the boundary and switch guys a lot to where now you can get a linebacker on Jalen Hyatt. And they did that a bunch during the season. So it's a very smart offense. Another thing that's a part of it is clearly the tempo. Tennessee not only had the number one offense in the country, but they were 1 and 2 the whole time Heupel's been here in plays per minute.
Yeah.
And the tempo of it is crazy. Another aspect of it is the power run game. They still will run the football. They'll run the football sometimes more than throw the football. It's not a run and shoot offense because they have this tempo. They still want to run the football. And I bet they will work to always have a quarterback that they can involve in the run game as well, and not just have a stationary pocket quarterback. So all of those things still be balanced on offense, the tempo, the forcing to declare, the wide splits. It really put a lot of teams in difficulties in coverage. And then teams they can't substitute either.
Right.
So it gives you a lot of advantages. There'll be some transition there, based on the personnel they have, but man, it really works. And there hadn't been a ton of offenses unless you have Georgia like elite corners,
right?
Or your team isn't ready to play like South Carolina game. It's hard to beat them with all that they do on offense.
Do you anticipate him bringing some Tennessee guys with him? You know, whether it's a strength guy or maybe some analysts who have been, or some GA potential kind of guys, a couple of those kind of guys to fill in part of this staff?
I do. I don't have insight on who those guys are, to be honest with you, but it's something that we've talked about. I wondered on the air, in elevating guys with their roles. You mentioned analysts and GAs and maybe a position coach, Kelton Pope, who's been sort of a young rock star. He was elevated in his first year as the wide receivers coach after Cody Burns went to the Saints as wide receivers coach. So, maybe there's a recruiting title to try to lure a guy like him, and there's money. Another aspect of it is what does Tennessee do in response and trying to keep those guys?
Right.
Do they have, as Tennessee already had those discussions with Heupel that, look, we will increase that assistant pool to try to keep some guys. I bet he tries at least with some guys, because there was so much familiarity. Almost the entire offensive side of the ball was guys that came with him from UCF, other than that wide receiver position. So I bet he wants some comfortable pieces and then build around him based on who's available. So he'll try. Whether he's able to do it, not sure, but I would think at least a couple of those guys within the organization, even if they're not position coaches, will go with it.
And obviously the last part of this is kind of the lifeblood of any good program is recruiting. What kind of reputation does he have as a recruiter, both from at the high school level? I know you call high school games, the big prominent games in that Knoxville area. Was he a guy that you would see at a game every once in a while, that kind of stuff? And just as important, the ability to recruit guys from other places through the portal. There's going to be guys maybe at Tennessee that maybe want some more playing time, whatever their situation is, or around the Southeastern Conference. Do you think he'll do a good job being able to foster those relationships with the high school coaches and other guys that are potentially in the portal?
Yeah, I do. In the first part of it, he's an excellent recruiter. There's different recruiting sites that have different rankings. So he's not always at the very top of those rankings. Usually there's one guy that kind of ends up getting a lot of the credit. But as coordinator, he's involved in a lot of different guys. So I think he'll be an excellent closer. I think he'll do well in that area, as he probably won't be able to do a lot of the day-to-day as much since he'll be running a program. But his relationship will help him. And that's the second part of it, is that he's already has a ton of relationships in the state of Florida. When he was at UCF, and he has recruited that state before. So I think that will give him a jump to be able to continue to transition. And I'm sure he's had some of those responsibilities even at Tennessee to recruit that area already. So I don't think it'll be as big a transition, but he is relentless in the terms of Josh Heupel, a relentless recruiter, and he's been involved in a lot of guys. And I think maybe the biggest because he has been around that long, the biggest payoff was probably in this current class of guys that they have right now that he's not going to get a chance to coach. So it is kind of a weird situation from that standpoint, where they got the tight ends, they got the quarterback. So yeah, but I think one of the best things about Golesh has been the player development. I mentioned the tight ends, the offensive line made a drastic improvement, the wide receivers. He's involved in all those things. And so that will buy him some time to be able to continue to improve and add to his relationships in Florida and recruiting with the high school players. And then, yes, the transfer portal too, super aggressive from that standpoint. And they've hit on some and they've missed on some. But that's kind of the world for everybody in the transfer portal right now, which, as you know, setting records in the numbers that are out there.
Yeah, and like I said, to me, one of the big jobs down here is USF offensively was okay. It's their defense has really struggled under Coach Scott the last several years, and whether that's a recruiting, an element of recruiting, lack of recruiting, scheme, coaching. He's bringing in Todd Orlando to be the defensive coordinator when Orlando's got some experience at some other places, but that's to me where he's really got to. It's great if you score a bunch of points, as you saw at Tennessee, but in crunch time, when it's time to win, you got to stop some people. I know, obviously Tennessee had the issue there at the South Carolina game at the end, and I know he's not a defensive coordinator guy, but still, you're now the head coach of the program. You got to spend some time on the defense as well.
Yes, and then a lot of that is the hire, and then it's the style of play, and that's when people were criticizing this Tennessee team at times last year under Heupel, and then when they lost to South Carolina, and then people come out of the woodworks to say, see, when they were nowhere to be found before that.
Right.
But one of the things that people kind of wonder about long term is that offense goes so fast and gets off the field so quickly. All their scoring drives, minute 42, 2:18, a lot of that. You end up putting your defense back out on the field. Now you score touchdowns, then you have some margin of error to work with there. And then you, at the end of games, you got to slow it down to get to the finish line. You go 3 and out,
yes,
and you do that, then that's where it's a problem. Tennessee in their first year had issues on third down, so they put their defense right back out on the field. Tennessee had improvements in the run defense this year, but also Tennessee offensively was better on third down. So they were able to move the chains and at least buy their defense a little bit more time. They weren't as bad, short of the South Carolina game, of course. But other times Tennessee's defense was pretty good. Is just hit or miss in some ball games. But that would be something to watch, is that pace, putting the defense back out. If you can't keep the chains moving, then that can kind of snowball you on that side of the ball.
And obviously this is a minor thing, but it's still a factor, especially here in Tampa, the heat, the conditions of the weather. When it's so hot down here, obviously when those guys are on the field and you don't have as much depth as you need, you get exposed in a hurry on defense when you don't have those guys at depth.
And there'll be some transition, not only obviously on the defense, but on the offense too, with the offensive line. And it took those big boys on the offensive line some time. They kind of admitted last year that there was times where the offensive line coach was like, hey guys, take a deep shot. Our guys are running out of gas. And they were better this year. That's why the offensive line improved a lot. But man, there's going to be a transition. If those guys aren't used to going at that warp speed, then you're not going to have as much success being able to put that defense back on the field. So it's going to be an adjustment for everybody to go to that tempo. But look, Tennessee went 7-6 with everything they had handed over them last year. I bet with some athletes with the portal, you may be able to at least get some guys to transition and maybe at least keep it together, show some progress, and then you start bringing in more of the dudes in year 2.
I agree. So in your opinion, you think Alex is ready for this role to be the head man at a program like USF? It's not Tennessee, obviously, with the demands and the expectations, but you can't roll 2 more years where you win 2 or 3 games. You got to show some progress pretty quick, and there's some opportunity to do that with the transfer portal.
Yeah, I do. I've said this. I've kind of couched it a little bit by he can have success there, and I believe in him. But the school's got to help him. They got to help him with facilities. They got to help him with commitment. They got to give him the resources to be able to travel outside of Hillsborough County. And we all know there's a ton of players there and close and in the state. But man, if you gotta travel to go get a guy, then you gotta let him do it. And so the resources there, Golesh should have gotten some sort of assurances that they're going to invest. If they don't up that element, and here's another thing, NIL. You can't just not participate or just dabble in it when everybody else, the transfer portal like it is, and everybody to get the best deal. You have to have a collective relationship set up to help you from that standpoint, because everybody else is doing it. So if he has the resources, I do think he will make the right hire. He'll understand the relationships. Josh Heupel, the culture is a big part of them turning around so quickly is they were real to their guys. You didn't get a different message like Butch Jones, Jeremy Pruitt. They showed they cared about those guys. So I think he'll know a lot of those things to give him a base. And I do think he'll be successful, but USF's got to help him too.
All right, Vince, great work, man. Really appreciate the time. Took some great analysis on Coach Alex Golesh. Tell everybody where they can find all your great work online.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And if you want to see any Alex Golesh interviews and see what he's like as a coach in those press conferences, really impressive stuff from him, you can go to my YouTube channel. It's Vince Sports, and give me a follow there, subscribe there, and you scroll through and find Alex Golesh a bunch there. Our website, which you can see on the video, it's 991thesportsanimal.com. Video, podcast, a bunch of that, my blogs with predictions. And then also on Twitter at Vince Sports, give me a follow there as well. We will be in Miami. I will be in Tampa, and I will see you and our friend TJ Reeves be in Tampa before and after we go to the Orange Bowl to see Tennessee and Clemson. So excited about that. Although my knees break, but that'll be the bowl game for Tennessee. So we'll get to be in Florida for a few weeks. Look forward to seeing you.
That a boy. We like to hear that. We like to hear that. Awesome work, Vince. You're the man. Again, he's covered Alex Golesh for 2 years. Knows this guy inside and out, so he's giving you some great knowledge about what to expect as the new head coach of the South Florida Bulls. And Vince is a graduate too, so I know he's super excited about the new hire as well. So Vince, keep up the great work, man. Appreciate it, and go Falls. Is that a New Year's Day? That's New Year's Day?
December 30th, because of the playoff games, they moved it up. So December 30th, 8 p.m. It'll be the only game in town. So a lot of attention on that. So we'll be down there. Let me know if you need anything from there, and go Bulls, baby.
Don't be getting caught on South Beach now. Don't be getting in the blogs down there on South Beach.
Yeah, no promises, man. I've lost weight, so you never know.
All right, buddy. Have a great week. Thanks.
All right, you too. Thanks, bud.